Hi, my name's Bill Mew.
And hi, I'm Des Blanchfield, and thank you so much for joining us at the desk this week here at Elnion.com, highlights and news topics. We've got a couple of exciting topics to talk about this week. Bill, why don't you kick us off with your story about CISOs, or Chief Security Information Officers, and some of the challenges they're facing currently?
One of the things that I've been focusing on a great deal is who's to blame when things go wrong, because we've started to see the costs of incidents really kind of mount. We've seen one of the health hacks in the US where they paid a $22 million ransom payment, but they estimated that the costs are going to be far wider than that, and anything up to $1 billion in all. And we saw a hack of a large casino in Vegas where they didn't pay a ransom, but yet they're still expecting the costs overall to mount to something like 100 million. So what we're seeing here is an enormous escalation in the overall costs of certain cyber incidents. And I think that's going to be the case going forward. This has obviously got a lot of cyber insurance companies rattled. They're including sublimits in certain areas. Premiums are growing gently. And at the same time, we're also seeing the fact that it's becoming harder to get cyber insurance. The article in particular that I focused on is one that I've put on the site here. And it focuses on the fact that CISOs are rapidly becoming Chief Incident Scapegoat Officers. And it looks at personal liability. Now, to explain some of the background here, previously in sort of health and safety, there was an enormous effort to try and take companies and directors and to make them be more responsible and accountable for the safety of their staff, their customers and others. It wasn't until corporate manslaughter was introduced, where they were held personally liable, that actually the game started to change. We've already seen that organisations that have directors that don't actually carry out the sort of judicial responsibility and act irresponsibly can be held to account, and we've seen derivative actions or sort of class action lawsuits by shareholders in the past, and these are mounting, and we've seen CISOs at companies like SolarWinds and Uber being held individually liable. Gartner some time ago predicted that in the not too distant future, the vast majority of CEOs and potentially other board members would become individually liable. Now, Des, I don't know about you, but if individual liability is on the horizon, I think that's going to make a number of boardroom directors sit up and think. What we don't want is necessarily for the CISOs themselves to be held out as scapegoats. I believe that actually the responsibility is broader than this, and that at the boardroom level, everyone needs to be taking cybersecurity seriously and taking responsibility.
Indeed, and I was reading something earlier today that highlighted the fact that when we look at this whole space, not just Chief Information Security Officers, or CISOs, as we call them, but that the whole topic of cybersecurity is an interesting one that needs a bit of an overhaul. I was reading that the current rate for a cybersecurity specialist inside the UK government was £45,000 a year as a salary, and yet it was being compared to the fact that even somebody in a lowly government job in Singapore is paid about £150,000 an equivalent. And it was interesting that you noted the incident with regard to the gambling casino site in America. I think they estimated that to be around about $40 million, and they said they refused to pay. There's another one now that's just come out, and I won't name it because I don't really want to get into a battle with them for any illegal reason, but it's a health-related brand, and they're now estimating that it's in the order of about $100 million worth of impact, and still going on. And so much impact has been driven just from that first one you mentioned with the casino, that they've gone to ground now, and the federal government in America is actually pursuing it to learn more about it and how it went down, and see what they can derive from it. But the impact is such that the casino themselves are actually suing the federal government to discontinue the case, and I'm guessing they don't want too much discovery to be undertaken and so forth. So it's an interesting space, and it definitely will be an evolving one. And as you noted, We've got two sides of the challenge here. We want to hire good people to take on these roles and take on the responsibility of managing all things security, and in many cases physical and virtual and logical. And we ask them to take on a lot of shoulder burden in that role, and often they're not remunerated in such a way that they would take the role on if they were personally accountable for it. But as you said, if they're not personally accountable, then where does the buck stop? So it's an interesting space, and I think it'll evolve. Another story that I've just published today is around one of the 10-part series of blogs around the Mainframe platform and ecosystem that I'm working on, that I'd like our audience to jump on elnion.com and read. I started this out with a top 10 challenges around the Mainframe platform and ecosystem a couple of weeks ago. I put out an article on that, got some great response to that. I've now started a 10-part blog series on each of those 10 elements. I started the first one a couple of days ago, has gone live on elnion.com, around just the challenge of modernizing and integrating to platforms, which our readers will probably remember was a big challenge, integration of the Mainframe ecosystem in and out of it. And today we just put a new article on elnion.com where I've highlighted the skills gap and the challenge between finding new young entrants to the job market who want to work in the Mainframe platform environment, but also the challenge of finding older skills people who've got backgrounds, who have worked on the Mainframe and maybe have gone elsewhere. So a couple of stories there in the 10-part series. I'll be dropping one every couple of days at least, if not more often. And with that in mind, once we get this 10-part blog series done, we'll be looking at doing a couple of podcast and video conversations, fireside chats, where you and I, Bill, will be talking to whomever we can get on board to have a conversation around the physical hardware environments, the systems, the software, the databases. We might get our friend Craig Mullins to join us as an expert panelist as well, and just have a conversation about that whole challenge around the Mainframe platform and ecosystem, because it's not going anywhere, in that it's not going away, that is. But at the same time, it's considered a legacy system by many organizations, and yet it is one of the most modern physical and technical platforms on the planet, despite the fact that it runs a lot of COBOL code that is old. So yes, great stories there with your story around the issues around the role of a CISO, and hopefully people will enjoy my now 10-part series that we're dropping on the top 10 challenges that I blogged about a couple of days ago in the Mainframe platform. And we would love any engagement in digital and social platforms. So if you're on Twitter and LinkedIn and so forth, give us a like, give us a comment. We'd love any retweets and shares you can give us. And if you've got any questions or any topics around those stories that you want to delve into more deeply, we would love to have a conversation either publicly or privately. And as Bill will wrap up here, we'd love you to reach out and potentially join us at the desk here as well.
And obviously there's going to be a lot of debate on social media, so please do engage with us, comment on our stories, share the ones that you find interesting. There's a lot to be discussed here. I mean, I certainly know from my days on the global leadership team for IBM's financial services sector, that back then people were predicting the demise of the mainframe, and they have been doing for decades. Yet they're still here, they're still critically important, and they're still an incredibly secure platform, which I think leads on to the other point we're talking about, cybersecurity. So I'm sure that there will be many different opinions and sides to the debate, and we encourage you to join us online to discuss that. And on the CISO side of things, it is an incredibly big problem. Do you believe that accountability needs to come? Should it be personal accountability in order to make boardrooms take it seriously? And what are we going to do about the poor old CISO? There is an enormous amount of burnout there from people who are underpaid, underappreciated, under a lot of pressure. We look forward to having that sort of discussion with you. Please engage with us, and please come and join us with another news update coming soon. Des, thank you very much. Everybody out there, see you soon.